And I'm Stacey.
And you're listening to Whose Girl Are You? Today we are going to talk about all things school. Public school, private school, homeschool co-op. What are your options out there? And why your choice is the best one to make. The only one to make.
Oh, it makes me tired just thinking of all of the hours and brain power I've put into that.
Into the research?
Into trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
As if it's not bad enough trying to figure out what vaccines to give or not to give, then they're like, it just starts from the very beginning. I love this. You have a baby and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so hard to take care of. They poop and they pee and they need to be fed and they're crying all the time and I don't know what they need.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they start getting teeth and you're like, crud, now I have to brush these. And then they get hair and you're like, now I got to do this. And you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden they're like, now vaccines. You're like, I have to make these decisions. And you feel like, okay, every time you get something figured, you're like, oh, time for school. And you're like, oh no, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So it's
a constant. Yeah.
It's so tiring.
Yeah. It's a constant barrage of decisions.
Decisions. And there's always this, maybe it's just me, but I always have had this, there's probably a better decision out there. There's probably a better,
yes.
You research and you research and you research if you're someone like me. And I think sometimes you get too much research. You're like, well, there's good and bad in this and there's good and bad in that. And there's so which good and bad do I choose?
Right.
There isn't a perfect school.
Right.
Or is there?
No, well, that's what we're going to decide today.
Are we? I don't think
we're
so.
We're going to know. We're going to know by the end of this podcast the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
So what have you done with your children for school?
I have done public school, homeschool co-op, a combination of homeschool and public school, unschooling. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So with my family, I have done public school. I have done private school. I have done homeschool. I have done homeschool co-op. And I'm a fan of unschooling. I haven't actually gone quite to the extent of saying just unschool, but very much the child's interest led. This is what we're going to dig into because this is what you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in the same boat.
And guess what? All of them were great and all of them were horrible.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And I've had years where I had a kid homeschooled and two in different publics, because there's such ones in high school, ones in elementary, and the middle schoolers being homeschooled.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a variation of those different things. I will say this. I would not recommend having some in one way and some the other way, unless there's some kind of really important reason why you're doing it, because it is so stressful as a mom trying to be in a homeschool mindset and also be dealing with the public school and that homework mindset and that schedule. Mm-hmm. It was really, really hard. Once I just went straight over to everyone homeschooling, then my joy was restored.
Right.
But yeah.
So here's my beginning thought on education. What is the purpose of education?
What is the point? No.
So is it so that you can have someone spit out the year that the Revolutionary War started and ended? Or is it to give your child the tools to know how to learn? Whatever they want to learn.
I think it's learning to learn and learning how you learn. Yeah.
And learning to like learning.
Well, that sometimes doesn't come till much later.
Okay, but you know what? I don't believe that.
Well, it depends on the kid.
I'm going to tell you why. They want to learn about video games. They want to learn. They just don't want to learn their times tables.
In general, yes. Kids like learning. They just don't like learning certain things.
Well, so here's my thought then. We squelch it out of them in public school. I think public school, we talked about the medical profession in the last podcast, that everything, has to fit into this box and this diagram, and you have charts, and this is how kids are.
Yeah.
Every kid is not like that.
No.
Every kid has their own personality, their own nature, their own interests, their own ideas, their own will, their own everything. So trying to put every child into the same box is really hard.
It's stupid.
For the children.
It's downright stupid if you think about it.
Yeah, I agree. And so the thing is, when they're interested, the kid who's 2 and 3 years old, what's the word that falls from their lips always?
No.
No, a different one.
Why?
Why?
What's that?
Why? What's that? Why?
My 15-month-old grandson walks around all day going, what's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? Pointing at everything.
And he wants to know.
Yeah.
He's curious as ever about the world around him.
Yeah.
That's the natural response. But you know what we do? We say, not now, I'm cooking dinner. Not now, I'm buying a coffee. Not now, I'm scrolling my phone. Not now, I'm busy with teaching your older children, your older siblings. Not now, be quiet. No, I don't know why the sky is blue. It just is. God made it that way. Stop asking me these questions, because it's pressure on me that I have 6 million other things I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
I can't deal with your 3-year-old questions.
Mm-hmm.
So the kid, in my thought, the kid asks fewer questions and asks fewer questions and asks fewer questions. Pretty soon they just stop asking questions.
Boy, that might be true. And if it is, it's so sad.
It is.
You're such a downer, Lois.
I'm so sorry. I feel like our job as parents.
You basically just told me I'm the reason why my kids aren't curious anymore. No, it's not that they're not curious anymore, but ask less and less questions.
I think there's a responsibility on parents. I'm not.
I think you're right.
I'm not. I am kind of putting parents under the bus. I am a little bit throwing parents under the bus, saying we influence our kids.
For sure.
You said in the vaccine one, a lot of parents do what their parents did.
Sure.
Well, if your parents keep saying, don't ask those questions, stop asking those questions, you're going to.
No, and what we say to them when they're little, boy, does that just make such an impact on them too. You don't realize it though.
I know.
This is why I'm such a better parent now that I'm a grandparent.
I know, because you have a little more patience and a little more time and you have less physical energy,
Okay,
but I think you're mental.
Real. Here's the big difference. I sleep through the night.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And
Absolutely.
I don't parent 24/7. Like my kids are now doing their own laundry and bathing and brushing. They take care of themselves.
Yes.
So I have margin. When you don't have margin, you're not sleeping through the night. You're not doing all of that. And someone says, answer these 1,000 questions and be consistent with your discipline or whatever.
Yeah.
These are all good things. And these are all things we need to do. And these are all things we need to strive for. But we also need to understand that it's the direction, not the perfection, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't be perfect. You're not always going to be consistent. And all of this narrative that we keep saying to parents of a bunch of young children, I feel like sets them up to feel so like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And if they didn't have a good model on how to parent, then they even have another thing that they have to overcome.
Right.
And so, yes, I want to point out the things that are really healthy to do, but I also want people to know, don't take all of this as you're just doing it all wrong. Just take what you can from it and improve it daily.
Yes, absolutely.
And some days you're going to be a crap parent. Let's just be real. Some days you just don't even want to do it. You don't even, you don't
have the energy. Yeah.
No.
Well, that's what I meant it when I said a successful day meant nobody died.
True. There's going to be seasons that are if no one dies, I am a good mom.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I love that. So,
That was another podcast, but it was relevant, I guess.
yeah, but what we say to them, if we answer them or whatever, I mean, there is a lot of truth to that. I think you're right. I've never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
But I just said to someone yesterday, a lot of someone's actually, I was in a group of women that was probably 30 people.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about, we'd finished the study on the book of Lamentations.
Mm-hmm.
And someone said something about, well, yeah, sometimes people hear the narrative that crying is weakness, and so they don't like to cry. And I was like, well, okay, my brain knows that crying is not weakness, that God created us in this way,
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually strength to cry, to be able to be strong enough to sit with your feelings and emotions
Mm-hmm.
and let it happen
Mm-hmm.
and just cry and be vulnerable takes a great strength.
Right.
So I know that in my head, but still to this day, every time I feel like tears welling up and getting ready to cry, there's something inside of me that hears, quit your crying or I'm going to give you something to cry about.
Yeah.
Because that was the narrative. That was what was spoken to me when I was young. And so still my brain says one thing and my heart says another.
Right.
And my brain has to continue to inform my heart on what the truth is. Right? So this is what we do with scripture even. We read this.
Which way is it? Your brain informing your heart or your heart informing your brain?
I feel like it's my brain informing my heart. Because my heart is wicked above all things and I should not follow it.
Right. But so is your brain.
But it has the capacity to think and reason.
Mind of Christ. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But what I'm saying is, which way are you informing? Are you informing your heart that it's okay to cry?
Yeah.
Okay. Or I didn't know if your heart,
I have to remind myself of the truth, right? It's like something, it may be
that crying is strength
in semantics, right? Like, is it my soul? Is it my heart? Is it what is it? Like,
mind. Yeah.
I can't we're holistic people, so we can't pick apart these parts, but you can tell yourself a truth as many times as you need to.
Yeah.
And this is why we read the Bible if we can every day, because we're constantly telling ourselves the truth through that, right? This is the truth, because we can start creating a false narrative inside of ourselves about something.
Yeah. I don't know that we're actually telling ourselves the truth. I think God is telling us the truth. We're the one that's reading it.
Well, I don't know. What about David in the Psalms where he says oh, my soul, why are you so downcast?
Oh yeah. Totally.
That's what I'm saying.
When we're feeding our soul, the word is feeding our soul.
Yeah. It's nourished.
Proclaiming the truth and it's nourishing our soul. Yeah.
But I'm just saying you can't go off of those feelings always.
No.
You have to sometimes inform your feelings that that's not the truth.
Yep. Exactly. Totally. Yeah, exactly.
So, sorry, I don't know how I got there, but
I also have had public school, private school, homeschool, co-op, all the options.
What's the best?
Whatever works for your kids and your family.
What has worked best for your kids and your family?
Right now, we're homeschooling, but I can foresee in the next couple of years, my last one at home is in 9th grade. In 11th grade, they have out here in Washington, is it 11th and 12th? Running start? I think it's 11 and it might only be 12th grade, but it's either a year or 2 years of college that they can take at Clark in combination with their high school. You can actually graduate from high school if you work your tail off. You can graduate from high school and get your diploma and graduate Clark with an AA the same year.
You were able to do that in the 90s when I graduated, because there were some overachievers in my class that had 2 years of college under their belt before they graduated from high school.
Yeah, it's still possible.
No idea where they are now. There was only a couple of them, and I've never heard hide nor hair of any of them since, because I'm pretty sure they flew out of that small town and went and did great things with their lives if they were doing that kind of business back in the 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I should Google them and see if I'm going to Google one of them right now because I remember his name.
See what kind of letters they have after their name.
I got to look.
So the thing is, we tell our kids, you have to take all of these classes in high school and you have to learn all of this stuff, right?
Oh my gosh. Guess what this kid is? Sorry. I looked him up. I Googled him.
Yes.
This kid that I've never thought of since 1994. What year is it? It's been a minute.
It's been over 20 years.
He's an expert in clinical cardiac electrophysiology, specializing in implanted device management.
There you go. That's been almost 30 years.
See, I knew he did great things with his life.
That's awesome.
Well, okay, greatness is measured in many different ways, but...
Oh, yeah. You're doing great things with your life, too. You're raising successful humans.
Yeah, keeping them alive.
Keeping them alive. They're not dead at the end of the day. That's success.
This is a segue for, I just want to talk about this for a second. Success is measured in so many different ways. And yes. I do believe that God measures success in whether the fruit is growing in our lives of joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, long-suffering, all of these. This is the kind of fruit he wants continually growing in our lives.
What does the Lord require of you? Do justice, love
and walk
mercy,
humbly.
And walk humbly with your God. That's fruit right there.
Yeah. So that's just something that I just wanted to put in there a little bit, because I say that this other kid, wow, he's doing great things with his life, and he is. I'm not trying to deny him of all the hard work that he did to get to where he's at. But I pray that there's fruit in his life as well. I don't know. I've obviously lost touch with him. But I don't think that's the ultimate measurement. That's not when we enter the pearly gates and we have to give an account or whatever. I don't think it's going to be how many letters do you have after your name? What are your accomplishments that way? No. I don't think that's actually going to play a part at all.
Right.
Unless they felt like the Lord's calling in that direction, and then they were good and faithful servants in the direction that he called them, then of course, yeah, still, right? But
it's not going to be the letters. It's going to be the people that he served by doing heart transplants or whatever it is that he's doing.
Yeah. And it's going to be that, I've humbly accepted the path that the Lord laid out for me, and I've trusted him all my days of my life, and I've given glory to him for the skills and things that he's gifted me with, and everything comes from the Lord. That's the kind of the walk humbly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Totally.
So that's how success is measured. But
yeah,
I wonder if your kid gets 2 years under his belt before he graduates from high school, if he'll be a cardiologist.
Well, let me go back to that. So where does that education go? They say, there's a full high school curriculum. You have to have this many credits in English. You have to have this many credits in math, in science and history, and all the subjects.
Yeah.
But yet we can skip 2 of those years and throw you into college to get a quote unquote head start. Running start is what it's called on your college education. So are all those subjects that you missed in high school actually necessary?
No.
The kids who don't go to Running Start and do full 4 years of high school and then jump over to college, start at ground zero in college, learning the basic, 101s of whatever they're learning. And I just think the model of you have to learn all of this stuff is so flawed.
Oh, I hate it. It's so bad.
Because I think what you have to do is learn how to learn.
Yeah, you have to learn how to learn. And then there's this. Okay, so by the time I was in whatever grade you do the times tables, 4th grade or something.
Yeah, I want to say
it
3rd, but
pretty self-evident at that point in my life I was not going to go on to be an engineer of some sort or some mathematician, right? I was excelling in my English courses, my creative writings, my my art. You could tell I had a bend to this other direction. Math wasn't to the bend. So this is where homeschooling comes in and plays, right? So, okay, if I would have been homeschooled, well, by all means, I should have learned basic math, multiplication, whatever. And I did learn it, but it doesn't have to be timed. I don't have to be able to recite my multiplication things in under a minute or do 100 problems in under a minute or whatever on that paper. Right. Talk about anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with a homeschooling thing, they learn their timetables. Maybe they're not fast at them, but they know how to do them. They know the concept of them.
Yeah.
Move on. Let them spend more time doing the creative writing and honing their skills where they're going to actually probably use those.
And enjoy.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's all about enjoyment, because learning your times tables is not enjoyable, but it has to be done.
Yeah.
It's part of the basic foundation of mathematics that you need to have to survive in this life. You need to look at that, like walk in and say, I'm going to buy 6, I don't know, pick something.
Yeah. Apples.
6 apples. Do I have enough money for 6 apples? Well, each apple costs 15 cents. How much money does it take to, just quickly, I think I have enough money.
Yeah. You have to at least be able to ballpark it.
Yes.
Yeah. But then again, those teachers that said, you're going to have to know this because you're not going to have a calculator everywhere you go.
Well, do.
They sure were proven wrong because we do.
But we didn't when we were in high school.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't when I was in high school, we didn't. And so when they said that, it was very valid. Yeah. They couldn't have thought that we were going to have cell phones and then smartphones and little computers in our pockets. Like no one could have predicted this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I can't go any farther into this conversation without talking about ChatGTP then.
There you go. Well, bring it up.
Oh my goodness. So ChatGTP is doing for language what the calculator did for numbers.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how many essays are human written that are being turned in high school today.
I mean, I wonder if people know how many emails are not Stacey written anymore.
Oh yeah.
No, I love ChatGTP.
I have really mixed feelings about it.
I know you would. I knew you would because and I have a coworker that is absolutely opposed to it.
Yeah.
Like the computers are going to take over. AI is taking over the world. Like this is so horrible. Is anything real anymore? How could you do this? This is like not even you. This is like not your natural. This is like, it's someone else. It's not even you. And I'm like, no, you tell it what to write, then it writes it and you review it and you say, yeah, that sounds exactly, it's actually better than, it is saying what I want it to say, but even better than I could have said it.
Yeah.
Sent. Right?
Yeah. But I think as long as there's that oversight for you, you're not in school.
Right.
As long as there's that oversight for, oh my word, this says, for me better than I can say for myself. You're reviewing it and saying, yes, that is what I want to say. Ooh, maybe that sentence needs to be fixed because that sounds a little...
And it doesn't always do a good job.
Right.
I tried to have it do something the other day and it failed miserably. I deleted the whole thing. I just wrote it all myself.
Yeah.
So you need to have the ability to write.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. So to use that in high school, to write your history essay or your...
No, for sure you should.
You have to learn how to write yourself. And then you can, just like knowing your times tables, but yet when you get into high school math, they're having you do your algebra or your whatever higher maths with a calculator because it takes so long to do the multiplication and the division that needs to be done for those problems. And that's not the concept you're learning. So when you get into higher math, it's like, use your calculator for the multiplication and the division. What we're teaching you now are higher concepts of math.
Right.
So when you're in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, 9th, whatever grades, no calculator. Sorry, you gotta learn. You gotta do that multiplication over and over. You gotta do that division over and over and get it cemented in your brain. Mm-hmm. But now that you know this, let's move on to higher math. Now, all it is 5 extra minutes per problem of multiplication to come up with a number that I need, or the division to come up with a number that I need to move on to the next step. And so it's totally wise to use a calculator at that time.
Of course you need to learn the basics, right? Otherwise, why even learn how to read? Why not just get everything on Audible and have it read it to you?
Right.
Why don't?
Right.
So, sure.
No, you have to. You have to learn how to read so you can...
Well, you want to read signs and you want to read a little cute note your spouse wrote you or whatever. Not that my spouse writes me cute notes. I don't know why I use that example, but I've heard people's spouses
potential theoretical notes.
Maybe someday. We're not dead yet. So, but yeah, you need to be able to read, right? So you can't just have something read it to you. No, yeah, you need to learn the foundations of stuff. But all I'm saying is that's where I think public school is mostly flawed.
Yeah.
Is that it's just a one size fits all they just push them through the factory. Like,
Yeah.
you fit in, or it works for you or it doesn't. And we're not really going to modify. I mean, they try to do IEPs and stuff. And I went down that whole IEP road, even with public school with one of my kids. And it was just a nightmare. I mean, in how they were trying to help. I mean, God bless them for trying. Mm-hmm. But all it did was cause meeting after meeting after meeting for me to follow up. And like, for the amount of energy put into that, there wasn't a lot of outcome.
Result. Yeah.
It was like, the outcome in the end was, you know what? I'm just going to pull him and I'm going to just do this at home because this is just not working. This is just way too much energy. No reward.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of the one size fits all is kind of the reason I started homeschooling in the first place. My oldest was in, I believe, 6th grade, if I remember right. So I had a 6th and a 5th. And his spelling, this was the biggest impetus. I've been thinking about homeschooling, but not really seriously at all. That year, my oldest had a spelling program where they were given a list of spelling words that 6th graders should know. By the end of the year, you got, this list is miles long. And the way they selected their spelling words was at home, someone had to give him a word off the list. You just started at the top of the list and you said, spell whatever. Nucleus. He spells nucleus. Spell origin. He spells origin. You go through this list until he gets, I believe it was 10 words. 10 words misspelled. Those 10 misspelled words become his spelling list and he studies those.
My kid did this. I remember this. Now that you said the last part.
And he's a good speller. So we're spending hours, literally hours, trying to come up with 10 stinking words. And finally, I'm telling him at 10 o'clock at night, spell a word wrong. I don't care if you know it or don't know it, but it's going on your spelling list. Either that or I'm picking 10. Because I'm not doing this. But you know what? He doesn't want to spell a word wrong because he knows how to spell it. But I'm like, why could that teacher not have had a different list for kids that are good spellers and say, here's your 10 words, whether you know them or not, do these words. And give them like psychology.
My kid wasn't a good speller, so it was a lot easier for me.
Oh, it was horrible. Mm-hmm. And I literally, that was the impetus to say, this system is not working for my child.
Yeah.
There were other things as well.
That's really interesting though, because, I pulled mine out. He was the first one I pulled out. Like everyone was in public, everyone public. And then I pulled him out, just him. Mm-hmm. The others were seemingly doing fine. Because there was a problem, I pulled him out. I said, we have to do something different. This isn't work. I literally was watching him just turn into himself, turn inward and shut down over all of this stuff that was happening. Mm-hmm. And, you pulled yours out because of the opposite.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I know that this teacher was trying to individualize the lesson so that she didn't just give them 10 words or 20 words or however many. And the kids know all these words and nobody's actually learning to spell anything. She's doing it out of a good heart of,
sure,
let's get spelling lists that they actually learn to spell words that they don't know how to spell yet.
Yeah.
But when you have a kid who's a good speller, that method doesn't work. Because I could go through all of the words. There's 1,000 words on her list, say. I could go through all 1,000 of those words and only come up with 2 spelling lists for the whole year. And it's going to take me 100 hours to do it. Not 10 hours to do it, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, there's got to be a better system. But this is just how it was, and this is how we're doing it, and I said, I'm not doing this anymore.
I actually remember you telling me, because when I met you, you were homeschooling already.
Right.
And I remember you saying, no, you absolutely could homeschool. Mm-hmm. You'll probably homeschool someday. And I was like, no, I'm not. Never do that. I am never doing that. I would never do that. And honestly,
that never word.
I didn't do it though until I found a reason why I needed to.
Yeah. That's exactly.
And then I said, okay, I could probably do this. And I was terrified. And
Yeah.
I eventually, all three of them got yanked and whatever out of public. And that's been that. Now one's graduated and the other one is almost. And then the third one is in 9th grade.
So let's talk about a big elephant in the room.
Yeah.
When my older children were in the lower grades especially, I was not afraid of what they were learning in public school.
Mm-mm.
Today, I started my youngest in kindergarten. And the schools near our home, the primary school and the middle school near our home, are the conservative schools of the district. There are a lot of old apostolics in North County, and there are a lot of conservative Christians in North County, and our schools are conservative. So I wasn't afraid to send him to kindergarten, and I went there and got involved. When I pulled my oldest ones and homeschooled, I homeschooled them for quite some time. And then at one point I was like, what obligation do we have to the public school system? If all Christians abandon public school, it's going to be a den of iniquity.
Yeah.
We have to be there and influence these decisions. Go to board meetings, go and volunteer, like be a part of the school, know the teachers, know the curriculum, know what's going on. So I put my kids back in public school. Some of them. It was years later. It wasn't the same kids. It was some of the middle kids were in public school. Then my kids were all in public school at that time. My youngest is starting kindergarten. I had gotten the 7.5 years between my last two. So I think it's 8 school years. When I had my last one, when he was getting ready to start school, his next up brother was 8 years ahead of him in school.
Yeah.
So I wasn't volunteering in his classroom anymore. I volunteered through all of those middle kids. I would spend a day a week at the school, at least, all day. I would go there and I would go from this classroom for 2 hours and in this classroom for 2 hours and in this classroom for 2 hours, and then we went home. Yeah. So I spent time. I got to know teachers. I got to know curriculum. I got to know kids. I got to work with kids. It was amazing because I love to teach. So it was wonderful. When they're learning to read, when they're in those lower grades, they're learning their multiplication tables. They're learning how to add and subtract and carry and borrow, and you have a purpose. The teachers are like, yes, please, if you can give me 2 hours a week, I would love it. I'll give you some kids that are struggling, or will you just listen to them read and help them read, or whatever, Yeah. When they get a little older, the teachers don't want you there anymore. They don't need that kind. The kind of things that they're teaching, I can't take over. They don't have individual help. They have their own people teaching the concepts that are maybe remedial or whatever.
Sure.
It's not parent volunteers anymore. So I wasn't spending as much time at school when my youngest started kindergarten, but he's in kindergarten. Again, I can just jump right in and I can be there for 2 hours a day at his school, in his classroom. And the things I saw in our conservative Christian North County school,
with an 8-year difference,
was a major difference and concerned me enough that he went half a year at kindergarten.
Oh. And
I pulled him and all of his siblings in the middle of the year.
Give me an example of what you saw that concerned you so much.
Everything.
Well, give me an example.
Okay. The curriculum itself has a bent toward not conservative Christian values, has a bent toward every story, every piece of writing that they read, every math problem has to be inclusive, has to be promoting values that aren't necessarily my values. And shoddy work, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I went in there and there's a sentence written on the board and it has used ITS, the wrong one. There's ITS and IT apostrophe S. And I'm like, you're teaching my kindergartner English and you don't know the difference between it's and it's. Or or two and two.
That drives me bananas. I actually have a little button that I wear on my jean jacket that says I'm silently correcting your grammar.
I know. I hear you. I need a button like that.
And sometimes I'm not, my friend laughed and said, sometimes not so silently.
But, totally. I know. I'm a grammar Nazi too.
There's a new thing that I hear everyone saying that I'm not sure. Every time I hear it, my brain goes, beep. Like, I don't know. People using the word whenever.
Okay.
Instead of when.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it seems like they just use whenever. Like, whenever is just like the new when.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, like, I heard it, granted, it's on TikTok mostly, right? So, like, where I'm getting, so maybe it makes sense on that platform. Maybe language has changed. I don't know. It's like, so whenever I was born, this and that, blah, blah. And it's like, no, not whenever you were born. Like, what do you mean whenever? Like, when you were born, it was a specific time. It wasn't whenever I was born. It's when I was born.
Yeah.
When you use the word whenever, it means like, not a specific time.
Yes. Yes. So my youngest was in kindergarten, and I worked with some of the middle school teachers. They had come up with this new reading. Oh my goodness. I can't remember the name of the program.
Ubonics. Do you remember that?
Yes. They had this English program for teaching, for reading, for English. So kids are not reading classics anymore. They're reading these rewritten, poorly written, terribly written stories that teach values that I don't agree with. I'm like, what? How can this be good? This is not. So I literally took, I probably still have it. It was a paper printed book. I think this school was saving on buying published printed hardcover books because it was looked like it was printed at the school. It was just stapled together, this
pamphlet.
It wasn't even a pamphlet. It was just printed on 8.5 by 11 paper, double-sided, stapled together with a colored cover. They printed a green cover sheet.
All right. That's cheap. All right. Anyway.
It's very cheap. This book is their reading book, right? And I'm going through my middle schooler's reading book. And the number of typos in that thing, I couldn't abide it. So I met with the teacher. I'm like, seriously, what can I do to change this?
Yeah.
This is not okay. I will not allow my middle schooler to read this because they know better. They're going to go, why are they using that word? And is it okay? Well, now they're going to question what they know.
Well, and what about those poor kids who don't know better and now they're just reinforcing wrong?
I know.
Yeah.
It was so bad. So at that point, middle of the year, I'm like, everybody's coming home. That's it. We're done. And I have not looked back. My youngest has been homeschooled he did a half a year of kindergarten. And I'm never going back. Now I will say, I might let him go into Clark College for a running start if he decides he wants a college career. But he has a foundation of good education, of the basics of learning, of the morality that I believe and teach. You know, like he's found it. Now he can, if he needs to decide he's going to become a doctor and he needs to go to school, which I don't expect, but you know, if he did, that's fine. I had some of my kids go to college and some didn't, and that's great. They can make their choices. They're all wonderful humans who know how to read, how to write, some of them have higher, like degrees in engineering or whatever. But if he decides to go, he's got a foundation in morality that I hope will sustain him.
Yeah.
These kids are inundated with truth is not truth. Truth is whatever you decide it is.
Yeah.
And that's horrible.
You even hear people say, live your truth.
Live your truth.
Truth is relative. I remember when the truth is relative philosophy came about many years ago when it first started to trickle into society and the uproar with some people. And I remember I was young enough to think like, what's the big deal? Like,
Right.
whatever. Like, it's
Right.
just a thought. People can have a thought. It's not going to affect whatever. Oh, I had no idea.
You can have your opinion, but truth is different than that.
Yeah.
That's your opinion. But when we have to say your opinion is truth, that's where the whole house of cards falls down.
I refuse to comply.
Yes, I agree totally.
I will not, you cannot force my speech.
Right.
To buy into your delusion. Like, it won't happen.
I totally agree.
My husband always says someday you're going to get thrown in jail, you know.
Oh no.
Partly because not only will I like just not let my speech be forced, but I will like speak out about it. Like where my husband's like, shh, quiet. Just be quiet and keep to yourself. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'm just like, they must know. I'm going to tell people.
Yeah. Well, the sad thing is that a lot of people don't know. You know, there's not a clear society has absorbed that truth is relative. And there's a lot of good, conservative Christian people who say, I don't believe that homosexuality is right, but if you want to live that way, you can live that way. I'm going to be gracious. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be loving. And I am not disagreeing with being gracious, kind, and loving, but being gracious, kind, and loving does not mean saying homosexuality is okay. Because a homosexual lifestyle is an abomination to God. And if you have homosexual tendencies, you need to be told those are wrong, just like your desire to take your neighbor's nice car is wrong, or your neighbor's wife is wrong, or the anger that you have at the stupid driver that cut you off in traffic is wrong. All of it is sin. Gossip is sin. Bitterness is sin. False speaking is sin. Like all of those things are sin, and they all need to be called out.
Inside the church or outside the church?
Both. Because it's truth. Is truth only for those inside the church or only for those outside the church?
Well, no, I'm just thinking that sin is sin, you're right, but why would we expect someone who is an unbeliever to live a life of a believer? Like, we wouldn't call out, like, I wouldn't necessarily talk to, if someone claimed to be a Christian and also homosexual, it'd be one discussion. And if someone claimed to be homosexual but wasn't a Christian, it'd be a completely different discussion. That's all.
Right. Because they don't believe God's law anyway.
Right. Right.
No, I get that. But I think exposure to God's law is, do you realize that there is a God who you are accountable to? Even though you don't know him. Even though you don't believe him.
Sure.
You will be held accountable.
Yeah.
So I think it still applies for both inside and outside. The conversation will be different depending if it's inside or outside. But I think the truth remains.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely.
So school, I hear things, you know, and my kids have now been out of public school again for my oldest went to half of kindergarten. He's now halfway through 9th grade. So that's how long they've all been out. But I hear things from friends who have kids in public school, that it is just completely common to have homosexuality affirmed, to have transgenderism affirmed, to have you shout your abortion. You are just inundated with cultural, politically correct teachings by teachers, by students, by the staff, like all of it. The whole place is a den of iniquity. I meant it. And I would highly recommend not putting your kids in public school.
My oldest one wanted to go back to public at one point because, well, we had moved to a different state. She didn't really know a lot of people. She wanted to make some friends. She's social like me. Mm-hmm. And so I said, if that's what you want to do, like, that's fine. So, you know, the boys were at home homeschooling and she went off back to public in like middle school and then into high school. And then at one point after she'd been in high school, I think she had a year and a half, maybe the last 2 years. I don't remember. It got really bad. And I was like, what's going on? Well, you know, first day at high school, some girl asks her out on a date. Mm-hmm. And just the amount of just bullying and
Mm-hmm.
Even she's chronically ill, like I said, and so she would have to go to the nurse's office, and she would hear from a friend that after she left, the teacher was in front of the class saying, "Oh, there she goes again," like making up excuses for this and that, and whatever. And she had like a real medical problem that she had to go there for. And, then to hear that and feel like you don't have the support of the teaching staff because of it. And it was just one thing after another. It got to the point where she was like eating lunch in the counselor's office.
Yeah.
And I finally cause I was like, I'm kind of a little bit hard sometimes. I had said, well, you wanted to go back. You can finish this out now. This whole back and forth thing. This isn't the life I want to live,
Yeah.
But, once it finally got bad enough, I was like, okay, fine. Like, I'll pull you out and let you finish this
when
way.
She had suffered enough.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, you learned that,
you do want her to learn the lesson, right?
Well, I do, because honestly, I didn't want her to go back into public, and she kind of demanded it. And I was like, if you go back into public, that's what you're going to do, type of thing. And
I'm not picking up the middle of the year. But you know what I did? I picked up the middle of the year last time.
I did let her finish out the last little bit at home. And this is how I really knew. I'm not trying to call her a liar or anything, but sometimes you wonder if teenagers exaggerate. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I realized how bad it had gotten when she said, after she was pulled out and whatever, she said, whatever you do not send my brothers to that school.
Huh.
And then I went, it's bad.
Yeah.
If she's worried about her brothers going to that school. So
was that a conservative place and school system?
This county is considered conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we are too. We're in, especially North County, so Vancouver is just in, greater Portland, a suburb bedroom community of Portland.
I think that they have
up here north of Battleground.
I don't think it matters where you are anymore, though. I think that there's
been
federal mandates handed down, and there's certain things that the teachers have to abide by, and their hands are tied behind their back. I don't think that they have a choice.
And then the state as well. We've got the state of Washington, which is just. We were supposed to do a field trip. So my kid is in a homeschool co-op now. We do 2 days a week at a co-op and the rest of the week at home. So this year I'm teaching high school, and we were supposed to do a field trip to the state capitol a couple of weeks ago, last Monday or 2 Mondays ago or something. And it got canceled because of snow. And so I had been preparing these high schoolers for going to the capitol, teaching them kind of a little bit how our government works, how voting works, how, who these people are that they're going to see, what they're doing, a little bit about the setup of that capital of Washington in Olympia, state capital. And all of the kids in this school are conservative Christian background. So when I'm telling them they need to know the name of our representatives, the name of our senators, the name of our governor, and so I'm writing governor on the board, and all of these kids, because of the pandemic, know the name of the governor, and they don't like him.
They're like, we still have Inslee?
Yeah, exactly.
I even know the name of your governor.
I know, exactly, right? He made a name for himself during the pandemic. It was horrible.
And not in a good way.
And not in a good way.
How did he get voted back in? Don't go there. Don't answer that.
I know.
Just go. Let's finish your story. Sorry.
So this field trip got canceled. And in one sense, I was so disappointed because these kids had learned a lot of stuff, and we were going to go there and see this in person. Like the building is beautiful.
Sure.
I respect the positions that are placed, that these representatives do, the jobs that they do. But in another sense, I was like, we don't have to go up there and deal with our less conservative representatives and senators who really don't seem like they really care about us at all.
They don't really seem representative of you. Yeah.
Right. I got a letter randomly. I don't know how she got my email. Probably because I signed us up for this field trip, right? I worked on this field trip business. Anyways, it was my senator, Patty Murray, sends me an email about the things she's doing. It was about abortion. It was about it was after the federal government the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, which I never thought would happen.
I didn't either. Which is absolutely good and right.
Yeah.
States need to make those decisions, not the federal government.
Exactly.
But she tells me how this is such a terrible thing in this email she sends. This is a terrible thing. It should never happen. And we're going to fight for women's rights, and we're going to fight for choice, and we're going to fight for whatever. And I wrote her back a short, polite email that basically said, would you please fight for the unborn citizen of the state of Washington? Because she said she's fighting for the citizens of the state of Washington. And I'm like, would you please fight for the unborn citizen of the state of Washington?
Right.
And I'm trying to remember. She didn't actually send me an email. I think I saw something posted that she had written on a Facebook group or something. Somebody had posted something she had written. Because I feel like I wasn't responding to an email. I feel like I initiated the conversation. Can't remember how I'm trying to remember the details. She writes me back a few weeks later. That is absolutely ChatGTP produced. GPT? GTP? What is it? GPT. GTP?
Yeah.
It's ChatGTP produced waddle about all the things she's doing for Washington. She zero addressed the abortion issue. Zero. That word wasn't even in the email. The unborn was not even in I'm like, she didn't even read it.
Yeah.
All she did is respond, and she didn't say, I understand that you're pro-life, and I'm not. Or, I understand that you're pro-life, but the bulk of the citizens of the state of Washington are not. She didn't even acknowledge that. And I was bugged. So in some senses, I was kind of glad that the field trip got canceled and I didn't have to go up there and...
Because you were all bitter at the moment and you were just like, I don't want to go.
I didn't have to go pretend to be all respectful for these people in front of my high schoolers who I wanted to say, this lady wrote me an email and she didn't even address the fact that I'm pro-life. She ignored it.
I do resent the fact that you blame this on ChatGTP because she may have wrote this horrible email, or her intern or something.
Her staff wrote this her staff wrote this generic email about all the good things she's doing for the state of Washington.
Right.
Environmentally. And
yeah. You're like, I don't care.
Socially and fighting the pandemic and education and like all the things. And I'm like,
Speaking of education. So what's the takeaway from today with education?
Yeah. Don't send your kids to public school. That's my first. I will say that to anybody, anywhere, anytime. Don't send your kids to public school. They are just getting worse. They were bad.
Lois, what do you say to the people that both mom and dad have to work? They have no choice. They need a double income because they both make not enough money.
Do they?
Well, some people do.
Can you get rid of the big, huge, fancy house that you're in and live in a more modest place? Maybe then you could afford it. I'm not saying everybody can afford it. I'm saying if you have the option.
Yeah, by all means.
And I would say take advantage of grandparents, take advantage of aunts and uncles, take advantage of homeschool co-ops, take advantage of every tool that you can. Take advantage of financial assistance in a private school. Because most of them have financial assistance of some point. And if you're at a point where you need 2-parent income to survive, maybe you give up one of the incomes and go work at the school and you can get a reduced tuition or something,
Right.
I don't know. I'm saying if it's possible, work it out so that your kids don't have to be in public school.
Yeah.
It is not possible for everyone, and I understand that. But then if that's the case and your kids do have to be in public school, get to know their teachers, look at the material that they're learning and combat it with truth.
Right.
When you have math problems with 2 girls in a relationship, like tell them this is not right.
It doesn't need to be in math.
It doesn't need to be in your math book. That is not okay.
Yeah.
So that's my takeaway. Don't do public school. Everything else is Dennis
Prager is like beating that drum hard. And like a lot of conservatives are. And now even Jordan Peterson, I still like to listen to him.
Shapiro.
He's pretty intense, but Ben Shapiro, all those guys. I mean, they're even just like, don't send your kids to college either. Like, do not let them go. Like, send them to trade schools, do something else, figure it out, help them start a company.
I'm not opposed to that. I think that's good. The problem is if they want to be a doctor, we need doctors. We need Christian doctors.
Yeah.
And if they want to be a doctor, they can't do that at a trade school, you know?
No. And so I would say this, like, don't be pushing kids into college if they don't have a career that they need college for.
Exactly.
Like, just to go, like, it used to be that, like, well, even if you just get some kind of associates in something, at least it'll, like, don't do that.
Don't do
that.
Don't do it.
And education, although we need our fundamental stuff, the extended ed stuff isn't be all end all. People are no better or worse or lesser than if they don't go on to extended ed. Being a stay-at-home mom has been one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done. One of the most difficult things, and it pays crap, but it's like, the rewards in the future as you see your kids grow up and then also want the same thing and you realize how important it was for them and how foundational it was for them. The rewards come much later and not maybe financially. Yeah. But
so worth it.
And as far as the homeschool, private school, public school thing, it just has to be like an individual thing. Mm-hmm. And depending on your situation, maybe you're a single mom. That's just not an option for you. You know, maybe, I don't know about the hard situations that people are facing as they are listening to this and wish they could, be a stay-at-home mom and be involved in school and do all this and that. And their really only option is to send their kid to public. Well, you really just need to be in discussion with your kids. You need to look at all their homework. You need to just be talking to them. And if you can go on, a field trip here and there, do your best with what kind of resources you've been given.
Yes. And I totally agree.
Pray with them and teach them a Christian foundation that they can look at the world through those glasses, through that biblical worldview.
Mm-hmm. And I totally agree. And we do need to support those who are single moms, those who are in the situation where their kids have to be in public school.
Yeah.
We need to, as a church, come together, the Christian church, come together in support of those who have those difficult decisions to make.
For sure. And then the other thing is too, there are, like, a lot of churches still do, well, maybe I don't know if a lot do. I know ours still does. But there's Sunday school programs, where they can at least get some sort of if you're not exactly sure all the things to teach them or whatever, like, you do your best, but there's also Sunday school that can help, to give them another. And I think that's been great with the kids homeschooling, is having them go to Sunday school, because it's just one more like external thing to get them around different groups of people. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's not bad for them to have that foundation.
Sunday school's amazing.
As well. So I'll throw that little caveat, because we didn't talk about Sunday school, but it's just like one other little aspect of like a spiritual schooling that you can send your kids to. So I just wish the best for everyone out there. I mean, it's not easy trying to make these decisions, and sometimes having to have no decisions to be made, but them made for you. And that's a really hard place, because as you said, the public school system is in a bad state of affairs right now. And, as Christians, it's pretty much opposed to what we believe. Yeah. For the most part. So I don't know. Let's just stay in prayer about this and go out and vote, because voting's coming up again for our local school systems anyway. Go out and vote, find out who these people are and if they hold conservative values, and hopefully at least we can sway it a tiny bit that, the state might say this, but you know what? Our individual schools aren't going to like lean really heavy on that. They're actually going to go this other way because of the people that we have in there. So
local involvement is very, very important.
Yeah. So I think I always look at the good, better, best philosophy, right? Mm-hmm. Like the best thing is to maybe do this, but like this is the best and this is what you want to do. And this is the better thing, and you might be able to only do that. You might not be able to do the best because of financial restrictions or whatever. Well, do the better thing, and if you can only do the good thing, then just do the good thing and pray with your kids and send them to Sunday school and then ship them off to public and pray with them, keep in relationship. You know what I mean? So,
and look at their homework.
Look at their homework and just be involved and, speak truth to them in love. And you got to trust that God's going to have them no matter what. Right. Like, but
Absolutely. Because you know what? The other thing that we didn't talk about, the flip side of that coin is sheltering your children in homeschool from the real world. And then when they're 18, they step out.
Yeah, that's my choice. Honestly, I just want to build my own little commune? And keep them here and teach them everything. They don't ever have to leave. It's fine. It's fine.
No, I don't.
I'm joking.
I know. But there are people who feel that way. And then when their kid turns 18 and has to go and get a job and sees how real people are, they're horrified. And it's like, why could you not have had this conversation with them a few years ago when they were under your roof and living in your own home? So there's every side. The protection. I'm not a protectionist. I want to protect my children from the abomination, the den of iniquity, but yet I want them to be settled in what they believe. They got to be able to navigate that because they're going to work with people who are transgender and homosexual affirming and abortion affirming and whatever affirming of any kind of affirming you can be. That's what they're going to,
I affirm you're affirming.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a really good point too. From the very beginning of this conversation, they need to learn how to learn.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what the future holds.
Right.
And they have to have a foundation to stand on.
Mm-hmm. And that those are rock the two, is Jesus.
I would say that's the two primaries, right? If they have a firm foundation to stand on and they have the ability to learn, they'll be able to navigate this world.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if they know when the Revolutionary War was or wasn't.
No.
It'll be okay.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So it's all good and it's all bad. I told you that from the beginning. It's all good and it's all bad and it's all impossible, but it's all possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Anyone that's listening, good luck with it all. And, I pray that God will open the way for you to do the best thing you can for your kids at this time in life, in this current culture.
Yes, totally. Amen. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us at whosegirlareyou@gmail.com.
Perfect.
And whose is spelled WHOSE.
Whose girl are you? I got to get going, so I guess we will talk next week.
Sounds great.
All right. See ya.